All right, we're back again with another edition. This time talking about a host of things. I named it the Georgia Roundup on our internal things because it's a roundup. We've been off for a while. I guess the last time we did it was a week ago.
Pre-draft for sure.
Yeah, it was before the draft. Georgia with the fifth most, with 8 picks or 8 draftees, I guess. So at this point you've come to expect it with Kirby, and having 8 pretty good, being one of the top programs that continues to churn out talent. Also tells you next year Georgia's probably going to have just probably more. Maybe Texas will have more, but outside
They're going to
that,
have more. I think they're going to have more than they had this year.
for
Georgia.
sure. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So Texas and maybe Georgia and Miami will have the most players drafted. Alabama had the second most with 10, Ohio State with 11. Indiana, which I found interesting, they had 8. Georgia also had 8. So take that with whatever you want to make out of that. I just take it as the program's in a good spot.
Yeah, and I'll extrapolate further. I said this off air, but if I'm an Alabama fan, that is the definition of underachieving. If you had the second most players go to the NFL, but yet you didn't make the playoffs, right?
I mean, they made the playoffs.
Well, you didn't go any further in the playoffs than what you did. So, not trying to shit on DeBoer, but at the same time, I understand the Bama fans' frustration. Saban would get more out of having that much talent. But as far as, and not only is it the 8 tied or whatever, 5th most with that, Indiana, undrafted free agents, I believe there's going to be a lot of Georgia players that have legit shots of making squads that didn't go in the draft. So,
yeah.
And that goes to the, Kirby said it on an interview he did on Glory. That speaks well of the program. The GMs and the president of football operations are calling Kirby about these undrafted free agents because they know the Georgia culture. So, bodes well. And I do agree. That also goes, I think, in terms of snap count, meaning players that played on last year's team that are coming back. I think Georgia's one of the highest ones, but yet we're still a relatively young team. Or not relatively, we are a young team.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about it, and it's going to probably continue to be a theme. But Georgia's probably the deepest it's ever been in this new era, the 12-team playoff era, that's the 2023 onward. So that bodes well, and I think they might be one of the deepest teams, top to bottom, really in the country. Texas and Notre Dame are going to be the media darlings, but Texas outside of their top 40, how good are they? And eventually, might not be game 1 or game 2, but eventually they're going to have to go past their top 40. And what does that look like? I don't really know. So, and Notre Dame, whatever. I think this season is going to be an interesting one and see how things play out.
But the other thing that Kirby said, Kirby's usually conservative, meaning he's not going to say stuff like this very often. But you also don't know if it's to motivate the players who started. But he said, we, for the first time, have guys that were starting last year being pushed and maybe going to have their positions taken. So that infers a lot more depth than what we had last year.
For sure. And well, all right. So we'll talk about this. Touched on the NFL draft. It's now talking season now till, I don't know, after SEC media days. And Kirby's made the rounds. He's been on Josh Pate's show. He was on that next round out in Alabama. And then obviously the Glory content. To me, you can look, go watch the Josh Pate thing. It is, if you're looking for in-depth conversation about Georgia, don't, because that's not what's going to happen. That whole interview was talking about the larger picture. I think Josh Pate to his credit, and I think he's right, Kirby's kind of the leader of the college football world now since Saban's gone. And he's going to ask him about his big picture ideas about how things should work. So they get into that conversation. The one that really was a hot button one was the next round interview at the golf tournament. I didn't think anything really of it. Basically, what he said is top to bottom, the SEC is a much tougher conference than the Big Ten or the ACC. He gave credit to the Big Ten having really good teams at the top, winning national championships. But their schedule day or week out, week in and week out isn't near comparison to an SEC team.
Yeah, I think maybe we're homers, and so we'll have to, and we're biased. But I think anybody that watches college football, they can't argue what from the bottom third of the SEC conference compared to the bottom third of the Big Ten conference. There's a world of difference. There just is in terms of the athletes that are represented in those programs, the speed, the expectations, the passion level. I mean, you show up to Mississippi State, Starkville at a noon kickoff compared to like Northwestern or Purdue. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's not a fair comparison. So, and you look at, was it Ohio State's season or last year, the cupcake games they had at the,
they were literally resting. Indiana did the same thing too, where they were resting players, starters in regular season games.
And we were in knife fights every week.
Yeah.
And then Kirby made a great point too. And I don't know which one it was at, but it was, I think it went to the 9-game schedule. It went to the conference championship, and then how the playoffs are like scheduled. In other words, you're the one that told me this, and Kirby makes it. I think this point is probably a fair point of talking about the Big Ten winning the last three championships. Yeah. Is SEC teams are in a dogfight week in, week out. And Georgia was playing really well. Then they're throttling it up. And then you have a 6 weeks where you throttle it down. And now you got to get that. And football, unlike a lot of other sports, is a very emotional sport. And it is really hard to ramp back up and have the speed at which everything happens. And just a lot of different things. To ramp that back up in the playoffs, I think the SEC is at a disadvantage for that. And I agree. But like you said, Indiana and Ohio State were able to rest players. They didn't have to get up and be at their best every week in and week out.
I think that's the biggest, to me, what people don't understand. And it really, it shows whenever they talk about stuff like this, because they go, well, you had all these games and then you had a month off and then you play the playoff, you should win that. Talking about like Big Ten schools, talking about Georgia.
I hear you.
Mentally, they've been, what you said, they've been throttling up, putting the choke on the whole entire time, and then they finally get to relax. Well, you stay in that relaxed state that whole time and you never ramp up. There's never been ebb and flow like the Big Ten has, where they can go, okay, well, this week we can have off. This week we got to get up for off, on, off, on. That's not how it goes. So mentally, I think is a harder proposition for SEC teams to play in the playoff. It's just a reality of the situation, whether that's fair or unfair. I still think Georgia should have won. I think Georgia should have beaten Ole Miss. I'm not making any excuses about that. But you can point to that there are reasons that these things are happening. And I'm with Kirby. Let Greg Sankey invite every team that thinks that they can play in the SEC schedule. Let them come down here and play one out. Look at Texas. Look at Texas since they've joined the SEC. They had the easiest schedule ever 2 years
First
ago.
2 years for sure that they were in the conference.
Well, okay, last year was a little bit more difficult, but the first year they make it all the way to the SEC championship. Everyone thinks how great they are. They got their ass kicked twice by Georgia. Physically, got their ass kicked. And what do they have to show for it? Nothing that season. Last season, they lose to Florida. Like there's just random games where they shouldn't have lost to Florida. So Texas, Oklahoma, they haven't had their fan bases thought, oh, well, we're going to come into the SEC. We've owned the Big 12. It's a step up in competition, but we should keep the same level that we've been having in the Big 12. Well, they haven't. So I'm completely okay with Ohio State coming in here and playing a week in, week out schedule that Georgia has to play. The past 2 years, for sure. There's no way they survive with 3 games.
They're never. I mean, I hear you, but you're not going to ever have that. Not immediately, unless you have super conferences, right? But what I think, and I'm not a look. This is where we are, so I'm not saying I'm a fan, but given where we are, this makes the most sense to me, and how you've solved some of that stuff. Number one, I don't know if it's 16 or 24. I'm against both. But given where we're at, I think you're going to have to go to a 24-team playoff, right? And you're going to have to do away with conference championships. And then you're going to have to play these rounds all the way up through to get to the to the championship game. So you don't have this lag and this layoff. So, and you're going to have – and I told you this the other day. If we go to somebody is going to have to make a rational, logical argument on why we need a committee if we're going to go to the top 24. I really mean it. We don't know what the criteria is. They talk out of both sides of their mouth depending on the week. We don't know their biases. We don't know if they're watching all the games. To me, with AI being what it is, and you're going to expand the field, just rank them based, and they never take. They can tell me whatever they want to tell me. They don't take into account strength of schedule. And the SEC is they're losing because of that. So in my opinion, expand the playoffs, get rid of the committee, and play the games all the way up through the national championship. You get more revenue, you get more money, and it's more equitable if you're going to expand it. That's the only. I mean, that's how you fix that. But what you've done is what we said all along. In college football, you've watered down the regular season. That's what you've done.
Well,
you take away the passion and rivalries. Congrats.
You're going to completely wash it away. And I saw this guy, he was on Feinbaum. He said, I just want people that are in charge of college football care about college football and care about the fans that watch college football. The people in charge do not care at all about college football, and they don't care about college football
revenue.
Yeah, and they care about the bottom line. The money's always going to be there in college football because it's just is unlike all the other sports in this country, it is a emotion-based sport. There is no other sport like it. You don't have people poisoning trees because they put a rival jersey on their coach's
People
statue.
get killing each other that are next door neighbors and family members over Alabama and Auburn, and it's crazy. Yeah.
So it's an emotion-based sport, and there will always be the money. And ESPN is guilty of this. They're trying to take college football to a place where it appeals to the the NFL watcher who only watches the NFL and doesn't know anything about the draft. My favorite thing in the world to watch in the draft is when like they have the New York Giants and they come out first round even. Well, like guys that we would all know who watch college football, we all know who they are. And they select an offensive lineman from LSU and they go berserk. They lose, but they have no idea who that guy. And if you ask them, hey, who's this guy? They say, oh, well, I saw that we were going to take him in a mock draft. They have no clue about any of this. And that's who ESPN and the people in charge of college football are trying to appeal to. I'm good. College football's been around for over 200 years or 150 years. It was fine without those people. It will be fine without them. So I don't really understand why we're trying to appeal to those people. ever.
I don't either. And you're killing the smaller programs, the Division I, Division II, Division whatever, right? And so you're killing those programs. You're watering down the sport because the quality and the quality of the play, I think, is the other thing that's going to eventually go down. And you're going to have more of these lopsided, playoff games that are unwatchable. That's the other thing that you're going to have to get ready to have. So that, like I said, I'm not a fan of any of this stuff, but given where we are in the current state, to me, those things, expanding the field, getting rid of the committee, having AI or something else and just rank the top 24 teams, and then maybe you have a committee seeding them. I don't know. Maybe that could be their role, but it needs to be transparent. And you get rid of conference championships. That's the way you fix this, and that's where we're going. That's the inevitable before we get to the super conferences.
I hope not, but yeah, you're probably right. All right, well, off of the doom and gloom to another, a very upsetting, a very hot topic conversation between Georgia fans, at least. I guess it was Friday. Yeah, it was Friday afternoon. You sent it to me. I was flabbergasted. I had to take 5 minutes to kind of rearrange myself because I couldn't believe it. Gather my collective thoughts. But anyway, Scott Howard out as a play-by-play guy. So is Josh Brock. Now it's going to be Jeff Dantzler, which congratulations to Dantzler. Great guy. I think he's going to do a wonderful job. And then John Stinchcomb. Is it John? Yeah, it's John.
Yes, John.
So I think he's going to be really good. I think Dantzler's going to be good. Dantzler, there might be very long segments of silence because he gets just as nervous as we do watching a game. I've heard that he literally sweats the entire time, doesn't sit, and also chews his nails. So I don't know how he's going to be able to broadcast, but he's going to do it. So congrats to Jeff. I think wonderful hire. I think whoever made this, it was the University of Georgia. They did a huge disservice to Scott Howard. Now, look, you can say whatever you want about Scott Howard, and you might not like him. The guy had an impossible task to fill in after Larry Munson. A job that was not ever going to be. He was never going to hit that one out of the park, right? But he did a fine job. Him and Larry Munson are the voices of my Georgia football experience. So I have a little bit of a sweet spot for Scott Howard because I grew up with him and Larry in the booth. So that I think they did him a terrible disservice. He should have at least had this season to ride it out, and then they could put Dantzler. Dantzler's not going anywhere, so they could have said, "Hey, look, this is what we're going to do." But again, and what happens to Scott during football season? Is he on the pregame show with Hondo? What's his role going to be? I have no idea. But if I was Scott Howard, I'd be pissed.
So, couple things. I'm probably not as, it didn't rock my world as much as it did yours. With that said, yeah, I think for most Georgia fans that are alive, it's Larry Munson and Scott Howard. He had an impossible job. He was never going to fill the shoes. He didn't really try to. I do appreciate his service. I thought his call against Ohio State was one of the better calls. So that was, I appreciate his service. The only comment I made, and again, it's preference. I just felt like in big moments, Scott had a tendency to yell at you, but that was because of his passion and excitement. I quickly got over that, and I think we've said it on air multiple times. we prefer to turn the TV announcers down and listen to the radio call. That's how I grew up listening to watching and listening to the Georgia game. So, but I don't know Jeff Dantzler. He and I are about the same age. And we were at Georgia at about the same time. I know he's passionate. I listened to him and Kevin Butler and the grits and the shrimp and grits and all that. So I doubt they're going to continue to do that show because he's going to have a full plate. But yeah, it's good to get somebody in there who's passionate. And I always like both the Stitchcomb brothers. So it should be interesting. DJ's still going to be there, and we don't know what the pregame is going to look like. I'm sure Lauren's still going to be there.
Well, Lauren's going to be there even in death.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. It's always good, but I agree with you. They could have done it a little bit differently. I don't. You told me this, and we don't know if this is true or not. We're not journalists. We're just guys talking Georgia football.
Yeah.
But some big time donors evidently didn't like what's his name, Josh Brooks, or not Josh Brooks.
Josh Brock.
What's the difference? What is it?
Josh Brock.
Sorry, but yeah. So that was that was what moved the needle. So I don't know. I didn't mind him. I didn't. So I'm just glad we got a Georgia guy and we hired from within.
I was not a big fan of the Josh Brock guy. When I was watching or rewatching the G-Day, they had the radio broadcast synced up to the G-Day. And I get it, it's G-Day. It's also really weird that Scott Howard's last game, over 30 years on air for Georgia is the spring.
Yeah, couldn't they let him know before then?
What an embarrassing exercise there. But anyway, I've never – anyway, to my point of G-Day, Josh Brock made a huge mistake at the very beginning of the broadcast. You can go on YouTube and find it. It's a huge mistake. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? And he made those throughout last season. I get it was only his first year. I wasn't the biggest fan of him. So I understand wanting him gone. But the reasons that I heard, and this is completely rumor, I don't know how true it is because he was critical of the players making mistakes. And I got to tell you, these guys are now getting paid, and he's supposed to be a play-by-play guy. Or no, he's a color analyst.
Yeah.
So his job is to do that because he makes you aware of what's going on. I don't have any problem with you being critical of a player, especially in today's age. So if that is the reasoning, that's bullshit. And if it's the reasoning to get rid of Scott, that's also bullshit. So I think Dantzler is going to be great. Larry Munson was quoted by Anthony Dasher in a article that Dasher wrote, saying that Larry told him that Dantzler was going to have his job one day. Took a while, but he was absolutely right. And if Larry Munson thought he was good enough for the job, then I will too. I like Dantzler a lot. He was always around campus. He was always by Grady. He was either inside Grady or around the building of Grady. And he would literally just pull you over and be like, hey, how are you? I'm Jeff Dantzler. What's your name? And he would know about you, your family, where you grew up. If you told him where you grew up, he could name you a Georgia player that is from your hometown. And anytime you ever wanted to ask him a question, he was always open. So he's a very nice guy. He's a wealth of knowledge for Georgia football and Georgia athletics in general, and University of Georgia history. So I don't have a problem with Dantzler at all. I really like the guy. I've always liked him. I like him on the baseball broadcast. I've listened to him a few times announce the games. I think he's a good broadcaster. So fire, passion, and energy that Kirby talks about, Jeff Dantzler has. So he hits all three of those boxes. I love Dantzler. So this is nothing on Dantzler. I think what they did to Scott is it's a shame because He's been there since 1993.
Yeah, I saw it was 18 or 19 years that he did it. And he called 2 national championships. So
Right.
he's got
That's
that.
the other thing too.
But I will say this just before we move on. I think people, and again, I can't tell people what to think and what to do, but yeah, I'm with you. These players, when we went into name, image, likeness, and let's face it, they're not student athletes anymore. They're paid professionals. That's what these guys are. And when you start paying college kids millions of dollars, in my opinion, now you do have the right to not to hammer a guy, because I know they're not wanting to mess up on purpose, but if they make a mistake as a fan base, you and I have talked about it on air and then off, all these sunshine and roses Georgia fans, no matter what, I'm always going to love my dogs. You don't have to say that if you're a true fan. Of course you are. That's what fans mean. It's fanatic. You're passionate. You're not going to not continue to love Georgia. But when it's bullshit and they don't play up to the standard that Kirby has said, we're on air, and I would say we're some of the biggest fans there are. And yeah, we're critical sometimes, because when it's bullshit, it's bullshit. That's how life works.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, and I've never understood it from this point. Those people, I know this is a fucked up, I shouldn't have said that, but it is a messed up way of thinking, but these people also are an extension of you. They represent you, and that's why we care so much about the University of Georgia, the football team, because they're an extension. They represent you on the football field, and that's why it's been such a big thing in the South. It's okay to be critical, because that you're criticizing them because they're representing you, and you feel slighted. So I have never understood people saying, "Oh, well, you can't criticize them because they're kids." I gotta tell you, if a high school guy messed up like these players do, I would criticize them. So I have no problem with that. I don't understand that line of thinking, and I never will.
I don't either. So I'm with you. I don't want to kill a kid, but at the same time, we as a fan base, we can't be afraid of a little criticism. And sometimes I think we're a little, some of the Georgia fans, if I could be somewhat critical, we're a little temperamental when it comes to handling criticism.
Oh yeah, I think of most fan bases are, but there's a special segment of the Georgia fan base that cannot take any criticism, and heaven forbid, if you go against the grain, you're the worst person ever. I've never really understood that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but that's the same thing that allowed, and I love Coach Rick, but that's also that same attitude and mentality is the same thing that allowed us not to ever get over the hump with we're a little bit of what do you call it, lackadaisical or complacent when it comes to stuff. If you're a University of Georgia, and I remember you and I, when you were smaller, and last couple of years of Rick, I was like, hey, I think it's time to make a change. And I told you when we hired Kirby, yeah, we need to be playing in a national championship within 2 years. That's the expectation down here. There's no reason why we shouldn't be, not every year, but certainly knocking on the door. And those are the expectations. And you continue to go on 10 years, 10 wins in a year. Good, solid program, but we have got to get there. And I just think sometimes we have the inability to be a little self-critical of the program, that we need to lay objective eyes on it occasionally. That's all.
Well, with the amount of talent that Georgia has, there's no excuse. I mean, look, as soon as I know things are a little differently with the playoff and how everything works, but look at all the success that Kirby's had within. This will be his 11th season. I mean, think about outside of 2016. Think about all this.
Ask Q3's how quick Kirby had success.
Yeah, well, I don't believe it. I don't think that's right. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we go? I can't see.
No, congratulations. I'm glad all the guys got drafted. Falcons have finally got a couple of players. It should be fun to at least tune in and give a reason to watch the Falcons when there usually isn't. But Zachariah Branch, and I think Cash Jones got he's undrafted, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Branch doesn't have a quarterback to throw to him, but he can run around. So I guess that'll be interesting.
Well,
to
they can
watch.
keep Tua from getting his head knocked in. Offensive line that might have a change. As my
I don't
uncle
think
used
they
to
have
say.
that. All right. I think that's it. We'll probably be back. By the way, the third chair, no one bid on the line yet. I'll do it again. I'll bring in a third chair. We'll do a Mount Rushmore, our top 5, something in the week. And we got a long way from here to about June when everything start picking up. No, not June, July. I'm sorry, I misspoke. But long way. So we'll have to keep coming up with content, and we'll try to do this at least weekly. So continue to subscribe, like, comment. I appreciate the comments. But one of you stop being a chicken and hop on. I will absolutely work within the schedule for you to be the third chair. I don't care. We new blood. We need something. So if you stuck around this long and you're that big of a sicko, you can jump in.
Boy, that's how to get people to volunteer, by calling them names.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no shame. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've missed before we go. Talked about the draft, talked about Kirby talking, talked about the radio news. Oh, before we go, I forgot this. May 9th, they're doing a jersey sale. There's only 60 football jerseys. So if you're the first 60 people, I guess you're going to get a jersey. But they have baseball, volleyball, women's basketball. So if that, you want a jersey for somebody or to hang up, get that. They're pretty good. I think baseball's only like $40, which would be cool to have. You also get to go into Butts Mere. I would just to go into Butts Mere and hang out. So make sure you do that. That's May 9th. And I think it's 4 to 7. So check that out. And it's open to the public too. So anyone can go. I know Glory members get they get to RSVP. But anyway, all right. I think that's it, right?
I think so.
All right. So remember to like and subscribe, comment, third chair, do it. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. I'm back on the talk. At Terminus Sports _ATL. That's Terminus Sports _ATL. Keep subscribing. We've got some subscribers that came in last video, so we appreciate that. And we'll see you on the other side.
See ya.